Happy Thanksgiving. On today's show, I'm talking about the 10 things I am most thankful for regarding the Texas Rangers this 2023 World Series championship season. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 10 seasons, including all 5 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, on today's Thanksgiving edition of the show, I'm recording this a couple days early, so I can not be working on Thanksgiving for the first time in 5 years. But I'm listing the 10 things that I am most thankful for when it comes to this baseball season. So let's go ahead and start off with the first thing I am most thankful for. This is in no particular order, just 10 things I am very, very thankful for. The first thing I'm thankful for is that the Texas Rangers are not owned by someone who is poor. They're not owned by someone who is cheap. They are owned by a billionaire who is more than willing to shell out for big money contracts for good baseball players to play for his favorite baseball team. It is a wild market inefficiency the Rangers have exploited over the last 2 years of these other teams saying, yeah, I see that good player. I see that Corey Seager. Yeah, I saw that he won a World Series MVP and he's been really darn good, but I don't know. Is he actually worth paying money to play for my team? I think I'm going to pass. Oh, that Marcus Semien guy. Well, he's coming off the greatest season that maybe any second baseman's ever had. Winning a Silver Slugger and a Gold Glove and, finishing top 3 in MVP voting 2 of the last 3 years. I don't know, but is he worth $25 million a year? Nah, I'm going to pass. Oh, this Jacob deGrom guy. He's been the best pitcher in the world when he's healthy. And he's had a couple of injured seasons. Is he really worth the money? Nah, I'm going to pass. I'm so glad that the Texas Rangers are not owned by one of those cheapskate billionaires. They're not owned by the A's owner, John Fisher, who was so cheap he intentionally ran his team into the ground and relocated them to Vegas because for some reason MLB thinks that being in Vegas means being in the gambling industry. Just another edition of boomers not knowing that you can work remote. They're also not owned by whoever owns the Mariners, who is saying, actually, how we have all this history with, the greatest Japanese player to play before Shohei and Ichiro Suzuki. Yeah, we don't want to bring that Shohei guy around because he's too expensive. Can you tell everyone we tried our best, but we're actually too poor? And they're also not owned by the Angels, who, well, they're not poor. They're just dumb. And the Astros, who keep letting all of their big free agents walk, and hopefully eventually will do the same thing with Jose Altuve and Alex Bregman and eventually Kyle Tucker, of letting their good young players walk to other teams and then, eventually paying in prospect capital to bring them back. Just the old ones, though, in Justin Verlander. I'm glad that the Rangers are not owned by a poor owner. They're owned by a rich owner who is happy to spend his money on our favorite baseball team to bring good players to play here. What a wild strategy. What a wild concept. And what a way for it to work out with the Rangers' first ever championship. The next thing that I am thankful for this holiday season is that I am not a TV executive. You may be wondering, Bryce, why are you not happy? Why are you thankful you're not a TV executive? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because I don't have to care about TV ratings. What is absolutely hilarious is fans of other teams, fans of teams who are not the Texas Rangers or not the Arizona Diamondbacks, clowning on the Texas Rangers for winning a championship because nobody watched. Like it doesn't count. It is such loser energy. It is such goofball behavior. It is honestly so embarrassing that these fans of other teams are saying, well, a lot of people didn't watch, so your ring doesn't count. I find it especially hilarious because I've heard it from several Mariners fans who have never even been to the World Series. Yeah, I'll take a World Series that nobody else watched because I don't care. It wasn't for them. It was for me. It was for you. It was for fans of the Texas Rangers and the Arizona Diamondbacks. And if anyone else didn't want to watch, then they can kick rocks. I don't care. It was a great World Series for those of us who did watch. And if you're literally not employed by Fox, and not even just employed by Fox, but one of the higher up executives who's worried about TV revenue, or if you work in Major League Baseball's front office, then maybe you're concerned about TV ratings. But if you're just like me and you are not a TV executive, then you should be thankful that you're not, because those World Series ratings literally do not matter at all. And just laugh at anyone who tries to use that against the Texas Rangers to lessen their exceptional championship in 2023. The next thing that I am grateful for is the entirety of this Rangers coaching staff. This is the best coaching staff in the league, bar none. The best manager in the league, the best pitching coach in the league, the best offensive coordinator, the best hitting coach. I mean, this was a team top to bottom. The best third base coach, the best Tony Tuesday enthusiast in the league, the best catching coach by far. Bobby Wilson doesn't get nearly enough credit. But this entire coaching staff, I think, really goes under the radar for how good they are. Everybody sees Bruce Bochy and says, oh, first ballot Hall of Famer. Therefore, it's all Bochy. But Bochy does not want to take all the credit for himself. But he is a big part of why the Rangers won the World Series and were undefeated on the road in the entire playoffs, and why they broke their 7-year playoff drought. Bruce Bochy was a huge part in that. But the rest of this coaching staff was absolutely sensational this year. Will Venable as the associate manager, which I think, in my opinion, from what I'm inferring, it just means manager in waiting for whenever Bruce Bochy does finally officially retire. Donnie Ecker as the bench coach / offensive coordinator. I think he is a huge part of why this offense was so ungodly good and why the Rangers are finally starting to get the most out of young hitters where they had not been able to develop young hitters in a long, long time. Same with Tim Hires, the actual hitting coach. He's done a phenomenal job this year. Mike Maddox, bringing him back as pitching coach. I mean, we saw the night and day difference in the staff this year. Now, part of that was obviously signing 1 million pitchers and signing really good pitchers. That kind of helped. But just Mike Maddox's influence on those guys, they talked about it all year long of how he was a calming presence, how he was a guy who had been there before, who had such veteran experience. Bringing him back, even if just the vibes, it was not just for the vibes, and reuniting him with Max Scherzer, who he helped have his best seasons in his career. That was very, very important. And Bobby Wilson, the Rangers catching coach, I mean, the job that he does getting these catchers prepared defensively, I mean, the job the Rangers do, framing, blocking, everything as defensive catchers do. I mean, it helps that the Rangers have a bunch of really great defensive catchers, but I mean, look at the guys who they've had in the few years that Bobby Wilson has been here. Jose Trevino, Jonah Heim, Austin Hedges. Mitch Garver has done well behind the plate whenever he's been there as well. And same with Sam Huff, has really gotten a lot better defensively as well. And I think that Bobby Wilson deserves a whole heck of a ton of credit, as does everybody on this coaching staff. Corey Ragsdale, as well as Pat Cantwell and John Frazier, the bullpen catchers, which technically count as members of this coaching staff as well. Coming up, we're going to get into the rest of the 10 things that I am thankful for during this Thanksgiving Day, right after this word from our sponsors. Shout out to the everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, I will be breaking down my Black Friday wish list, the top 10 free agents I would like the Texas Rangers to sign during this offseason. Now, the next thing that I'm thankful for on this list is John Daniels, and specifically the groundwork that he laid for the last, 15, 17, however many, decade plus, nearly 2 decades that he spent in the Texas Rangers organization. And, he wasn't perfect. He built a lot of the best, before this year, the best teams in Rangers franchise history. He was the one who drafted and developed and signed and traded for all of those teams that made it to the World Series for the first time in franchise history. And you go ahead and look at the rest of this roster. Nearly everybody on it was a guy who John Daniels targeted or drafted or developed or traded for or what have you, or signed. Almost everybody on this roster. Now, there were some key additions by Chris Young, and I'll get to him in just a second. But I think that, especially in hindsight with John Daniels leaving, and I still feel like there's some grudges from the fan base against John Daniels. I don't understand why. Yeah, he wasn't perfect. Yeah, he wasn't there when the Rangers got everything done. But to pretend like he didn't have a huge hand in constructing this team, in getting guys like, John Gray, like drafting Josh Young, like drafting Evan Carter, trading for Jonah Heim, for Nathaniel Lowe, signing Marcus Semien and Corey Seager. Like, he was a big part of all of that. And it bums me out to my core that he wasn't able to step away on his own terms. And it really bums me out that he wasn't able to be there and be in the organization as that secondary role that he was kind of trying to step into this year anyway before he was fired. It bums me out that he is maybe not going to get a ring more on his own terms than because the Rangers won't give him one. But I think I am very thankful for the job that John Daniels did in building this team and in also mentoring Chris Young as well, teaching him the ins and outs of being a major league GM as a guy who was very young when he got his first GM job, and he made some mistakes along the way and made some smart moves and, made some more mistakes and made some other smart moves. And he did a great job as Rangers GM for as long as he was there. But I am very thankful for the groundwork that John Daniels laid for this World Series champion Texas Rangers team. Now, the the next thing that I'm grateful for on this 2023 baseball season is I'm thankful for Chris Young. I'm extremely thankful for Chris Young. Having a young GM at the helm as the executive vice president and GM, I'm thankful for the many, many successes that he had this year. He is a guy who has only worked in a front office since 2020, I believe, is when the Rangers hired him at the very end of 2020. But I'm thankful that he's young and he has not been scarred by bad trades throughout his GM career. He has not had that one trade that has really come back to sting him. It may end up looking like the Cole Reagans trade ends up looking like that later on, but he is not afraid. He has not been hurt before. It's love like you've never been hurt, trade like you've never been burned before. That's the mantra of Chris Young, because he was not afraid to go big this year. He was not afraid to be aggressive, to trade a top prospect for an aging Max Scherzer, to trade multiple top prospects for Jordan Montgomery and Chris Stratton, to trade Cole Reagans for Aroldis Chapman. He was not afraid. And I think that lack of fear was really helpful in him getting the deals done that he did. Other teams were definitely in on these guys who he ended up trading for, and the guys who he ended up signing Jacob deGrom and bringing Bruce Bochy out of retirement. I mean, my goodness, that job alone, like, that made me extremely confident in the direction Chris Young was going. By just bringing Bruce Bochy out of retirement, you start your first offseason as GM by bringing out a Hall of Fame manager with 3 rings to come manage your team, and then you follow it up with Jacob deGrom and all the other moves that he made this offseason. I mean, just like, wow, Chris Young, what a freaking... This is his first year in charge of a team. And he has already built a World Series champion and has them in position to have sustained success for years and years and years to come. That is something I am very thankful for. The hometown kid doing it for his hometown team and doing it extremely, extremely well. Very thankful for Chris Young. Next thing I am thankful for in this holiday season is I am very thankful for Leody Taveras, Evan Carter, and Josh Young fulfilling the dreams of these prospects, making up for these prospects who broke my heart for years and years and years. The past decade plus, however long I have been obsessed with baseball and especially obsessed with prospects. Prospects will break your heart. It's a quote by @Tepid Participation on Twitter, and it's a refrain he says over and over and over again. And back when I was young, back when I was first getting into prospects, I didn't believe it. I was like, no, prospects will be fine. But the first prospect that I followed, was that got me into prospects was Jurickson Profar, and we all saw how that turned out. Prospects will break your heart. The next guy that I was absolutely obsessed with was Joey Gallo, and seeing him achieve all of his dreams and all of his promise with all of the high ceiling and incredibly low floor, of seeing him get to the apex of what he could be, of being a guy who was a Gold Glover, was a Silver Slugger, was an All-Star multiple times, and seeing that come to fruition, and then seeing the Rangers be unable to sign him to extension and trade him away. I was just like, oh my God, prospect will break your heart. I mean, Evan Carter and Leody Taveras and Josh Young and maybe Wyatt Langford next, fulfilling the dreams that left unresolved, unfulfilled by Jurickson Profar and Mike Oltz, Nomar Mazara, Justin Smoke, Jorge Alfaro, Lewis Brinson, Jairo Barez, Michael Machuela, Dylan Tate, and like I said, Joseph Nicholas Gallo. Rangers having young, exciting players who are here for years to come is a joy that I have not felt in Texas Rangers baseball in many, many moons, and that most of us have not felt in many, many moons. I mean, it's basically been since like Elvis Andrus and Michael Young and Ian Kinsler that there is a homegrown, or mostly at least homegrown guy who came up and was absolutely amazing and stayed here for a long time. And I'm hoping that those three guys, and Leody and Evan Carter and Josh Young, are here and are those amazing guys for the next generation of Texas Rangers baseball. I mean, that is one of the supreme joys of baseball, especially as a diehard, as an absolute prospect nerd, of seeing these guys from the time the Rangers draft them and, knowing their stories and watching them, succeed and fail and learn how to be great at baseball. Those are the things that's one of the things that I love the most about, being a diehard, obsessive baseball fan is watching these guys and their journeys from minor league baseball, from the time they're drafted to make it to the major leagues, and to see the players they become and remember the promise that they had and remember the struggles along the way. And when those struggles, they get through those struggles and they learn how to succeed and learn how to, thrive at the big league level and, are fulfilling all of that hope that you put into them on draft day or when the Rangers traded for them years ago, and seeing them live up to that talent. It is such an awesome experience, especially with Josh Young this year, of seeing it across the full season, of seeing it as a guy who, I mean, even before, he was one of the first guys who before pre-draft that I was watching and, excited about his career. Being there at Texas Tech and watching this guy thrive as a freshman, back in 2017 or I think it was 2017, whenever that was, and seeing him as a freshman be like, this kid is special. This kid is going to go places. Not knowing that he would be a Texas Ranger, a first-round pick, a top 10 pick, a guy who, had all these struggles with random fluke injuries that kept him from making his big league debut much earlier than I thought he would. And then once he gets up to the big leagues, has an incredible rookie season and starts the All-Star game and, for some reason wasn't even the top 3 of Rookie of the Year voting, but he wins a freaking World Series his first year? Are you kidding me? That's what it's all about. That is a thing that I will always be very thankful for. And no matter what happens with the rest of these guys' careers, and in Leody and Evan and Josh Young and even Wyatt Langford, they will always be, well, not Wyatt, but the other 3 will always be World Series champions on the first ever World Series championship team for the Texas Rangers. Coming up, we're going to get into the last few things that I am thankful for during this baseball season, right after this word from our sponsors. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On Monday's show, we'll be talking about Adrian Beltre's candidacy for the Hall of Fame and why he should be a unanimous, no doubt, first ballot Hall of Famer. Now, let's get into the next thing that I am thankful for. I am thankful for the MLB Draft Lottery, and specifically for the Rangers having MLB draft lottery luck. They had the 7th worst record in Major League Baseball before the heading into the draft, and they were probably going to get the number 7 pick if there were they would definitely get the number 7 pick if there were no MLB draft lottery. But that was the first year of the draft lottery, and unlike another certain DFW team that rhymes with the Schmalish Mavericks, this Texas Rangers team finally did have good draft lottery luck, has only gotten good draft lottery luck in the one draft lottery they have participated in, because it's the only one that has ever existed. And in a draft with 5 clear, top-end players, and the Rangers having the 7th worst record, somehow they end up with the number 4 pick, and they end up with probably the best player in that draft in Wyatt Langford, a guy who had just a historically good first 44 games in the minor leagues, might already be in the major leagues come opening day next year. I mean, 200 plate appearances, 1157 OPS, 10 home runs, 17 doubles. I mean, more walks than strikeouts, 12 stolen bases, all the way up to freaking AAA, the point where there was honestly some thought in my mind that he might make his major league debut in the World Series after that Adolis Garcia injury. Didn't happen. Would have been absolutely sick, and kind of a little bit crazy, but in that way it's maybe just crazy enough to work. But we didn't see that. We will probably see it, almost assuredly see it at some point next year. But man, everything just kind of went the Rangers' way this past year, of the most important things, of winning the whole thing and then getting incredible draft luck. And in the last year that the Rangers are hopefully going to be in the lottery for many, many years. And that was the thing, is that, they were going for contending in 2023. So last year was hopefully the last year that the Rangers are getting a top-end pick, or were even in that draft lottery to begin with. And they lucked up. And the Tigers decided to not take Wyatt Langford with the number 3 overall pick. And I am very thankful that all of that happened for the Texas Rangers. Now, the next thing that I am grateful for and thankful for is that the Texas Rangers have still never lost in the ALCS in their franchise history. It's funny, all of these years of the Astros are still going to keep bragging about, making it to 7 straight or whatever it is, allegedly, ALCSs, but they've lost a lot of those. And the Texas Rangers have never done that. The Texas Rangers have never lost in the ALCS in their franchise history. Also, every year the Texas Rangers have played the Tampa Bay Rays in the first round of the playoffs, they have made it to the World Series. That's pretty nice. Oh, and by the way, the Texas Rangers have never lost a playoff series to the Houston Astros. The Astros have never beaten the Texas Rangers in the playoffs. And that will hold true for, well, probably a while. Hopefully a while. Hopefully forever, honestly. But in that, I am also very thankful that the Texas Rangers beat the Houston Astros so that we don't have to hear about that for the rest of our natural-born lives. And we get to hold that over, Houston Astros fans, for the rest of time, for the rest of eternity. The first time the Texas Rangers and Houston Astros played in the playoffs, the Rangers beat them. And they beat them down in their own house. And they had one of the most fun Game 7s as a Texas Rangers fan you could ever possibly hope for, of just beating the absolute snot out of them in their own house. The Rangers have won 5 straight games in Minute Maid Park. 5 straight. And 2 of those have been absolute blowouts. Just savor that for a minute. Just sit there. Savor that fact. Because the Texas Rangers have a 5-game winning streak at Minute Maid Park. It's absolutely delightful. For a team that had not won a series in Houston since 2019, before this year, before they did it in April, to have that winning streak going in there is just absolutely delightful. Texas Rangers have never lost a playoff game at Minute Maid Park. That is a very nice fact that I hope will hold up in perpetuity. I don't know if it always will. Maybe the Rangers and Astros will never play again in the playoffs because the Astros will stop making the playoffs and have to go through another 10-year rebuild where they have to lose 110 games every year. Looking forward to it whenever that happens. But for right now, Texas Rangers, are undefeated in the ALCS in their franchise history. What an absolutely delightful fact. Now, the next thing that I am thankful for, permit the sappiness, it's the holiday season, but I am thankful for all of my Twitter mutuals, for my friends, for all you listeners, but especially for Matt McCutcheon, one of my best friends, a guy who lives in Houston, we have bonded over our love of Texas Rangers baseball, and who offered me day of tickets to the ALCS to drive down to Houston and experience that Game 7 with him, the first game that I'd ever been to at Minute Maid Park. Absolutely delightful, 10 out of 10, would recommend. Lovely stadium experience, and if you can experience it while the Texas Rangers are clinching their first berth to the World Series in 12 years, I would very highly recommend it. Very delightful experience. But just experiencing this playoff run with all of you listeners and commenters, and enjoying it with you and with Twitter friends, and making Twitter friends into in real life fans and meeting up with them at the parade, and just experiencing this with all of you people and being a part of your Rangers fandom, of your experience throughout these playoffs and throughout this World Series run has been absolutely delightful. I would not change a single thing about it. Getting to do this for a living, getting to have the audience that I have, the fact that some of you are listening to this on Thanksgiving and getting to spend this off season and enjoy the benefits of floating on cloud nine, because the Texas Rangers are World Series champions reigning World Series champions for at least the next 330 plus days, has been absolutely delightful. It is my favorite part of this entire experience, and it is something I would not trade for the entire world, and something I hope to never take for granted, because it is an exceptional experience. And without people around you, without friends and mutuals and family members and other people to experience the joy of this Texas Rangers run, other people who have lived through the sorrows and the tragedy and the garbage years, who have suffered through watching 500 Jeff Mathis plate appearances in a single season, have suffered through Ariel Jurado being your number 3 starter in 2019. Like, what a weird team that was. And all of the down years, the 2011, the 2012, the 2013 Game 162, the 2014 season from heck where everybody in their dogs' heads fell off. Like, all of those bad years, all of those missed draft picks, all of those bad trades, or whatever thing went wrong for the Rangers, all of it being absolved in this World Series run, and experiencing that with all of y'all is something I will always be deeply, deeply thankful for on Thanksgiving and, every other day of the year as well. And the number 10 thing I am thankful for is that the Texas Rangers are World Series champions. Ugh. It's just absolutely delightful to just sit and revel in it. And every 5 minutes or so, and every literally at least once a day, it's just a little thought pumps in my head of, oh yeah, Texas Rangers are World Series champions. Whenever I'm watching another one of my favorite sports teams and they have some crappy loss of, oh man, I can't believe that Luka missed that game winner. Or, oh my God, I can't believe the Stars blew a 3-goal game. Or I very much can believe the Cowboys personally hurt my feelings by losing a game they shouldn't have. Or whatever college football team loses that I'm cheering for. It's just like, oh well. Rangers are World Series champs. Then I go back and watch the walk-off homer by Adolis Garcia, or Corey Seager's home run, or Marcus Simeon's game-clinching home run, or whatever amount of highlights, because there are so many to choose from. Honestly, just going back through them and rewatch it. I've rewatched probably every single playoff game at least once since the World Series. But just having those moments and just knowing, hey, the Texas Rangers are World Series champs, and just seeing little reminders of it everywhere. And every, probably 2 days on Twitter, someone's like, hey, remember the Rangers are World Series champs? And just retweet, fave, love, absolutely love it. And just, rewatching all of those highlights. I love that the Rangers just keep randomly tweeting out highlights of hey, remember this part? Remember when the Rangers did this? Remember the Rangers won it all? Yeah, I do. Would you like to watch this clip of Corey Seager hitting the greatest home run in franchise history, and tied with Adolis Garcia's walk-off as the greatest home run in franchise history? Sure. What's watching it, 20 or 30 or 500 more times that I've already watched it probably at least 100 times? Why not? Because the Texas Rangers are World Series champs. Revel in it. Let it sink in. Even if it still hasn't sunk in, 20 days later, 20, 3 weeks later, you still got the rest of your lives to let it sink in. So take your time. Enjoy it. Watch that Corey Seager home run one more time. Watch Nate Eovaldi get out of a jam. Watch Jordan Montgomery strike out Yordan Alvarez one more time. Because the Texas Rangers are still World Series champs, and that is something to be thankful for on this day and every single day until the end of time. Thank you all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.